In 2025 alone, a lot has been happening. Global tensions, from conflicts to elections, economic policies to international alliance. And these warrant us to question who controls the future. We will need to unpack who are the key players in this matter regarding to the power dynamics that are shaping our world. But before we dive into that, we need to just reflect on the Russian military demonstrations that recently taken place. And we are aware that there are some other African countries that did not participate. Part of them is South Africa and other global countries, questioning us why are they not participating, considering that they are part and parcel of the BRICS bloc. So before we start, we'll gonna play the video that demonstrates that what was happening during the parade.
Tradition and remembrance are, of course, a huge part of any Victory Day parade. After all, there's a reason why these processions are always led by the legendary T-34 tank. The tank of victory, the tank that allowed the Soviet Union to strip the dominance on the ground away from the Nazi Germany. But it is also very much about the future, very much about the future of warfare. And here, for the first time, taking part in the Victory Day parade in Moscow are Russian long-range UAVs. These are two different variations of a Gerань attack drone. They have become the bane of Ukraine's existence, quite literally, because these are the long-range drones. They're used to attack some of the most important targets hundreds of kilometers away from the front line. This is one of Russia's key weapons that it uses to attack Ukraine's military facilities and military targets very far away from the front line. These UAVs aren't the only ones that are being paraded again for the first time here through central Moscow, through the Red Square. This is a different breed of a UAV. These are Lancet drones, and you can see they're displayed here. Two Lancet drones. They are the ones that strike the target, and here you have a Zala drone. Basically, it is a surveillance drone that feeds the coordinates to the Lancets. Now, they are more of a medium-range weapon. Basically, if Geranys are more of a strategic attack drone, these are, again, these operate on a tactical level. Basically, if this Zala spots an enemy tank or a large group of enemy military personnel, of military servicemen approaching the front line, while they're still maybe a few dozen kilometers away from the front line, that's when the Lancet comes into action. And it films everything in high definition too, so there have been plenty of footage of the Russians using these Lancets very, very effectively. In fact, we have had a chance to talk to a bunch of crews while working in the Donbass, and they are truly one of the, basically a priority target. They are hunted down viciously by the Ukrainian military. This is, they are viewed as a huge, huge threat. Over here, you have Russian Orlan drones. These are purely surveillance. They are used, basically this is the eyes in the sky for the Russian army, also operating dozens of kilometers behind the front line. So their job is to spot potential targets as early as possible, and they provide live footage too. So here again, for the first time, we have on display basically the weapons of the future, the weapons that have reshaped the warfare as we know it.
My name is Tinyiko Nkuna. Joining me is my boss, Mhlanga. So, what does this parade symbolize for the Russian, the global South and the global North, and the world in general?
It might have been seen as parade of equipment, the military hardware equipment, but they are pushing that idea for people to understand that for them to be where they are, it's because they're more than capable of defending themselves. The iconic T-34 was the same tank that led the Russians into a victory when they crushed the Nazi Germany. But I must also indicate that when Nazi Germany was approaching St. Petersburg in 1945, they were 5 kilometers away from reaching St. Petersburg. A very interesting part is that it was only 26 Soviet Union soldiers who were able to hold the Nazi Germany from entering the city of St. Petersburg. 26 soldiers. They were able to delay until they got help. Very remarkable story that happened in that part of Russia. So that is to flex, basically, is to celebrate. For Russians, May 9, it's the biggest day, bigger than Christmas, because every second Russian that you meet has lost a family member in that war. Close to about 39 million Russians died during that conflict. So for them to be able to show the world that they are more than capable, and they're still showing you the latest military hardware that will complement their nuclear influence or dominance, so to say. It's not only about the nuclear, they have other things, and they have an opportunity because there's a conflict happening in Ukraine where some of the weapons are being put to test there. Every conflict gives the countries opportunity to see their technology as far as is it good enough, is it not good enough? So that also plays a part there. But digging deep into it, they invite their friends, they invite their military partners. They invite, I mean, South Africa has some of their Air Force soldiers are trained there. And other skills that happen in the military, the engineers for the fighter jets and stuff are trained in Russia. And most countries that went there are countries that are friends of Russia. The head of states touched down to show support for Russia. So we had Zelensky making a statement saying those who went to the Victory Day in Moscow are not just visiting, they're showing support for Russia. And that now makes you question the head of states that did not show up. What are they saying? I mean, Zelensky was here not so long ago, and the head of state of South Africa did not attend. Is it something that was discussed during Zelensky's visit not to go, or it's the bosses that said don't go, or with the other engagements? I mean, it's only the president and these people that will be able to tell what is happening there, of which my own opinion will tell you that if it was a different administration, it would have been very critical for the head of state to show face there. We saw Captain Traore making his mark, visiting Moscow for the first time, and something that I must explain about the sitting arrangement in that level. Where you stand and when you sit, it tells a story on how comfortable a particular leader is. If you look at the table, how they sit and how they arrange, It tells a story. That don't just put a guy behind the big guy. No, it's arranged. It is known. It's somebody we can trust. And we saw that Captain Ibrahim Traore was one of the people who was standing right behind Putin. Something that you would have expected Lukashenko from Belarus, but Belarus is part of Russia. So,
Yeah.
but what I'm saying is, as far as Africa is concerned, having Captain there, being the youngest and standing next to Putin, it sends a very strong message to African leaders, and also tells you a story. How come we've never seen any of these guys next to this man in an important day like that? So there was a threat to say this day should be sabotaged. We saw a few drones sent through to Russia to try and destabilize, but they had to be mindful because the following day, all the Rothschild management were in Ukraine to give Zelensky a comfort because they were mandated, they were instructed to go there. Don't allow Russia to show muscles, and you guys must go there and must show the unity. You have to make sure. But now let me ask a question. Did you see any American individuals there? No, they were not there. And say it confirms the same thing that we've always said, that the two families are now at loggerheads. We also have seen the change of tone as far as Israel and Palestine is concerned. Trump now is preparing, we are told, is preparing to recognize Palestine. He's been pushing for Netanyahu to give aid to people of Gaza. That tells you that there is a story behind what is happening. So the alliance that showed support, so Putin was sitting next to who? Xi Jinping, meaning at the hierarchy of the Zone B countries, you will see the structure. It's clear what is happening. You saw the Vietnam soldiers were taking part of the parade there, meaning there's a military alliance that Vietnam is setting up with Russia. You might go back in the 60s where around 1968, 69, where America was fighting Vietnam and they never won that war. So for Russia to have a military cooperation with Vietnam, it tells a story. It tells you that the Zone B countries are rearranging themselves. They want to rearrange Asia. They want to make sure that the ground is fertile, it's covered. And this is what the Americans have done for the longest time. I mean, there are over 2,000 military bases around the world. So that tells you a story. But before I exit to this point, I would like to zoom in into African leaders. We saw the Zimbabwean president was there, Angola and Guinea and Egypt was there. Now, I was baffled when I saw Egypt because I'm a 50-50 individual as far as Egypt is concerned, but I was excited to see Egypt attending because Egypt had just taken a lot of money from IMF not so long ago, and we know who owns IMF. So there could be talks to try and liberate themselves from the loans they take. Maybe there would be deals that they do to quickly pay the loans and shift to Zone B fully. Also, when I criticize Egypt, I become very careful because Egypt still play a very critical role in ensuring that Hamas is able to move certain things. I mean, we saw on the previous what you call this hostage exchange in Gaza. Hamas, IDF has flattened the whole area, but Hamas showed up with brand new guns, with brand new cars, with brand new uniform, and all these things that they have. The only place where it could come through, or even the tunnels, it could only be Egypt. So Egypt still plays that role of allowing that to happen, even though it's not publicly, but they still assist here and there, but they're not coming out to say that, because at the same time, they've already sold their souls with the money that they took from IMF. So as far as the victory day is concerned for Russians, it was not only for the Russians. It affected a lot of people, especially us as Africans. Most of our liberation movement, including the ANC, shockingly so, they sent Njimutek as the Minister of Defense. And I would say that move was very strategic move to say, defense-wise, we still need to cooperate with you. But as far as the head of state is concerned, what message is it sending to the BRICS partners, when you send a minister of defense where other countries send their number one? So that it's now putting more pressure on South Africa to say, are you with BRICS or are you with the West?
Yeah.
So my opinion is it was a very miscalculated step for South Africa not to send, or for the head of state not to go there and show face, because now there's still talks. Why did he allow Zelensky to come here? And the next thing, he doesn't even go to attend the Victory Day from his friends. So if they're still friends. So these are things that now I would say good military parade, good show off of military hardware for Russians. They showed the force. I mean, we saw the ICM biggest ballistic or intercontinental missile that will reach from Moscow to New York within 18 minutes. It goes as far as 12,000 kilometers. I mean, if you look at all your enemies, all within the 12,000 kilometer radius. So that makes you think, when these guys were manufacturing these weapons, they knew exactly where these weapons should target. So they are programmed according to how far my enemy is. So that also sent a very strong message. And that reaction that we saw for the EU management to be in Ukraine to try and say, put pressure on Russia. It was not only to put pressure on Russia, it was more of a ganging up, because they want to try and say, if Russia does not cooperate, we're eating up all their assets, because that's something that they want to do. But due to the legal technicalities, it is very difficult to just take assets that belong to a sovereign state and just do that because of a war, because there's a lot of technicalities that they need to follow. But whatever that they want to do, their bosses are trying to send a strong message to Russia. Remember, the other beef that the Rothschild has, the Russians have paid the debt in full. Then they kick them out of Russia. And also, the NGOs that the Rothschilds were doing, like Open Society that George Soros owned, are kicked out, are banned in those countries. Same thing that they were banned in Russia. If you look at where Open Society is operating, you'll see that the central banking is owned by the Rothschilds, meaning George Soros is their financial gangster, is the guy that they use. So what we are seeing from this military parade, it shows us some countries and their true colors, who your friends are, where you stand with other people, and it builds an opportunity to see the young countries coming up, young leaders coming up that will need the protection from the Russians to make sure that they continue to fight their colonial masters in Africa and other countries.
Okay. Joe, I hear the fact that those who are friends to Russia were supposed to have attended. The question is, who exactly must be interested in the parade? Because that parade doesn't only demonstrate the war tools that they have, but the power itself. In the event there is the outbreak of the war, a serious war, world war, everybody will be hurt. So the question is, who exactly must entertain, the global south or together with the global north or the world in general?
Remember, the Americans or let me say the Western powers have been trying so hard to want to erase the influence of the Soviet Union as far as the defeat of the Nazis. They've always wanted to say NATO or Americans or other people played a crucial role in defeating of Hitler and his system. But I must also indicate that majority of Hitler scientists and engineers, where did they go? They went to America.
Yes.
So, yeah, they went to America, and they went to Argentina. They went into all the friends of America. So what should be happening here? The anti-colonial powers should make a big deal out of that victory day. It should be all the countries that are anti-colonial, all the countries that want to be liberated from the financial gangsters of your World Bank and IMF, or your Rothschild or your Rockefeller orbit. They need to be part. They were supposed to be part of that. You can't call yourself a liberation movement and you don't go to the people who played a crucial role. I mean, Moses Kotane's grave was in Moscow until his remains come back. The Russians were refusing to bring his remains to say, no, he belongs to us as Russians, until the family and the government, they cut the deal for him to come back. So I'm saying majority of some of the MK people were trained in Odessa, in Ukraine. They live there, they grew up there. Some were in Moscow, some were in St. Petersburg, some were in Vladivostok, whichever you want to call it. So point I'm making is that, like Mozambique, for instance, I can guarantee you that if Samora Machel was alive, Samora would have been there. You know,
definitely.
Yes, he would have been there. Guaranteed, that I can tell you. Chris Hani would have been there. Moses Kotane would have been there. That we know for sure. These are the people. Solomon Mhlanga would have wanted to go there, you know, because these are the people that played the crucial role. So you would have expected all the underdogs to group themselves in one house, whereby they will enjoy the victory day, because that's where a brand new ideology and strategy to fight the colonial masters, because the fight is not over. The fight is still there. The fight still continues. It's just that the fight is now economical fight. Hence, BRICS was introduced to counter the G7 in terms of the economics. So why don't you want to be part of something that is supposed to liberate your people? If leaders do care about the people, they would have been part of that. But they cannot be part of that because now they can't speak when they eat, if I were to put it that way.
The issue of the specifically the issue of the elections. Why do we need to look at the elections? There are questions behind the elections. Every election around the globe, they have their own problems. We can give an example about what was happening in Germany and Canada recently. Last week, we spoke about the coalition government and saying that the coalition government has its own challenges. But again, even the elections themselves, they have their own challenges. We can look at what was happening in Canada before and after the elections. Before the elections, Canada was experiencing economic stagnation and industrial decline, with recession that started in 2023 and remains sluggish in 2024. There is also the downturn of the energy due to the high cost following their relationship blips with the Russian countries after entertaining the war with Ukraine. They have the problem with the rigid fiscal policies, where it was also known as the debt break, and due to many internal problems in the country. However, after voting, and then the party that took over had to go out and negotiate with America on how they can move forward in terms of trade. And you can be able to tell that they voted, but their votes end up meaning nothing because they still need to stick to the means or the ways in which Europe operates. They can't have relationship with Russia, for example, because they need to beg America on what is that they must do for their own country. We heard Trump telling them that can't you become our state instead of being a country? I think that's an insult. We can go again to Germany. We look at what was happening in Germany. A serious challenge where they can't have relationship with Russia, while they also have to have access to resources that are coming are coming from Russia. So they also have to support nonsensical policies. For example, they were supporting the fact that the fight between Israel and also Palestine, they need to say, because they are part and parcel of Europe, we support Israel's security while advocating for humanitarian in the construction of Gaza. So those are conflicting statements coming from the countries. So you taking back from what we have discussed on the challenges facing the coalition government, we are able to tell that even the elections themselves, they are problematic, whether they are rigged based on the outcomes or they were fair, but they end up not serving the public. So what's your take, Joe?
I'll start here at home. In 1993, when the CODESA was happening, negotiations were being done, and I believe that they over-negotiated and they cut themselves in the foot when they were negotiating, because some white people do say publicly that if it was us, we wouldn't have agreed on some of the things that the ANC has agreed upon. But I must also indicate that as long as you have people who are not politicians, who are not citizens, who are not bothered about the well-being of the people, who are only bothered for two things, control and money. Remember, Amschel Rothschild says, I do not care who make the laws, give me the control of the currency.
Yes.
So once you have those people who control the currency, the policies of that country will not be implemented accordingly and fairly. Because when they put their money, it tells you exactly what they want. It was never a secret. There is these programs that we've inherited from the West that we only have to sit for 4.5 years, and then there must be elections, there must be conferences. Somebody must tell me when the ANC was sitting in Lusaka drafting the programs and the constitution, who came up with that they must go to conference in 4.5 years and elect a new leader? Who said from 1968 or 69, when Albert Luthuli departed, the next leader was Oliver Tambo. After Oliver Tambo was Mandela. There was a gap there, but it was then amended. Who influenced that?
Yes.
Was democracy influencing the liberation movement and their party systems? How come we don't have a system where we'll say one leader will stay for 8 years? How come we don't have a system that says one leader can stay for 6 years? who came up with the measurement of 4 years. It can only be business that can determine that, honestly speaking. Where we come from in Africa, one family for 700 years will be the rulers of that community because it's a kingdom. We know it was their birthright, or it was the community that decided to say, this family are kings, and things were running smooth at the time. So until such time, we're able to question, because as people, we just go and vote. We said every 4 years, every this, every that. I mean, the very same president, when these things came, they said, no, the South African people will decide whether they will take vaccines or not. You are not going to be forced to take vaccines. And the business said, if you do not have a vaccine, do not come to work. Everyone was vaccinated. So who runs the government? It's the business. Because the very same cabinet ministers are funded by the business. They are given free shares to steer the policies of the country to go towards the direction of the business.
Yes.
So, and the business, it's another form of colonialism that gives birth to racism, that eventually becomes poverty to the ordinary people. So, whereas in the Chinese Communist Party, no amount of money will steer and change the policies of what the Communist Party wants for China. In the West, where we are part of the West, we subscribing to these ideologies. Imagine if Putin said 1 term or 2 terms in Russia, Russia would still be hungry. Russia would still not be a respected country. In fact, the West agenda, the American agenda, is to break Russia apart. They would have finished with Russia. But Putin has been there since 2000. From 1999, he's been there till today. The Western, they said, is a dictator because they can't get access. Whereas with them, they change the president. They change. Look at how stupid it is. Look at this. How stupid you can be. You call yourself the champion of democracy, but you've created a two-party system. Where's the democracy then? If it's not chicken, it's beef. If it's not beef, it's chicken. If it's not chicken, it's beef. If it's not beef, it's chicken. If it's not chicken, it's beef. Come on. Now they tell you that they're championing democracy. It's not real. It's a dictatorial system that is window dressed as democracy, and it's not democracy. We want leaders that will have the best interest of us at heart. We want leaders that are going to serve us as ordinary people. Whereas the Western ideologies are serving the business. The flags that you see at UN are not flags of countries, are flags of corporations that are represented by this stupid president that we elect. And even these votes that we have are so useless because all these guys, they go there, they kiss us, and they come back. Some of our African leaders, they are so well trained in begging. You are in a country where you have natural resources, but you go to outside countries and borrow. What was the reason for you guys to go and borrow money during COVID? What did you do? What exercises have you done to say, can we live with our means? What can be done? Who is going to pay these debts? The payment of these debts is when this Western corporation come to dictate, to tell you, don't go and attend the Russians. In fact, we want you to walk away from Russia. We want you to denounce Russia's actions in Ukraine, knowing exactly that you are a BRICS partner. Because the people who ushered a way for this country to go into the BRICS bloc are no longer in the office. How much time did they spend? 8 years, 4 years, 4 years. It still goes back. So the business wants sustainability in their programs, in their agenda. You will see elections happening everywhere. You will see collisions. The real master is not in the political party. The real master is not sitting with this coalition. These are all puppets. These are all pigs. These are all puppies that they just throw bones and they jump up and down. It means fuck all. It means nothing. The actual master, it cannot be seen. It cannot be seen. You will hear about them, You can't see them anywhere. Those are the people. That's why they call it the shadow government. The government that you can't see. The people that will dictate terms and conditions in everything. For now, you buy water, you buy land. They tell you the country is owing this much. Who are they owing? You owe those people that you can't see. You owe this corporation. Nestle came out to say it's not a human right to have access to water. Look at that. So as long as these governments are funded by these corporations, you will have that 4 years. Which political party that was brave enough to amend and say, no, guys, we had that president. He was good for us. We did not borrow. He created jobs. He invited countries from the B bloc to come and invest and there were programs for our graduates. They went overseas to go and study. There's a new plant that is coming to build trucks. There is a new breed of farmers that are coming to do this. How come we don't have those programs? All the warehouses you have in South Africa have become churches. Because the level of thinking is bankrupt. When other countries, they work even on Sundays. They manufacture. You guys go to church. You do praise and worship to come back to your poverty. No. We need a system. As long as we have this democratic system with these 4 years policy that we don't even know where it comes from, that we don't even know who's behind them. As long as liberation movement or political parties are still afraid because they are funded by the very same person that they promise you that they will fight against, it's not going to work. We will still have the chaotic scenes of elections, except for those two countries, Russia and China. They were brave enough to create their own system. Independent. They do things within. And because Putin has done all the terms, so what happens is you need to have a number of people that will nominate you to stand as independent, and you can be elected by the country and come back to lead. That's what happened in Russia. So they were able to study this so-called democratic system and said, for the West not to make noise, let's find loopholes, let's create our own democratic system that will not have the outside influence of the West, even if they can make noise within our countries, within our zones, within our land. We know what we are doing, and it will work for our own people. Let me tell you this before you come in. Around 1998, 1999, teachers in Russia were only getting paid with a bottle of vodka. No money. They were getting paid with bottle of vodka because that's all they have. Houses in Russia will have a bottle of vodka and the AK-47 with ammunition. That's all they have. Putin came, took over from Boris Yeltsin. He reformed Russia. He changed things. All the oligarchs who stole from Russia brought back the money. Some who refused to bring back the money, we all know what happened to them. So some today, they're big tombstones, whoever they are. But the money went back to Russia. As long as you don't have leaders that have the interest of that country at heart, who serves the Western corporation and lie to the people. ANC, when they campaign, they still talk as if it's 1994, as if they were not in power. I mean, how stupid it is to say, no, we oppose the vet. Who's in government? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
So as long as we have those conditions, your question is not going to be answered because the corporations are still dictating the terms and conditions, and they make the rule books for every single president, for every single manager who's coming into run the country. He's not running the country for the people, but for them. They don't care about what happens within the communities. If they did care, why do we still have the forums in all these townships? They would have reformed the country because these were all concentration camps where black people were kept. But the ANC came and not changed anything. All the other countries Like I always say, they changed the names. Namibia was Southwest Africa, changed to Namibia. Rhodesia, it changed. South Africa remained South Africa, and the colonizer is still here.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
So, Joe, you have started it well to say that the elections is the procedure to sustain the power of the elites. And then we came to demonstrate it through South Africa. I want to check so that we be clear, when did their problems start in South Africa? Did it start during the apartheid era or just after 1994? I'm saying this in consideration of the scrapping out of RDP and we install gear. With Thabo Mbeki and also Trevor Manuel playing a crucial role, I would say misleading South Africa to say that we have to take the neoliberal policies so that we move forward, we improve from where Mandela has left. And through that, the country start experiencing major problems when it comes to economy, because the economy was going to the hands of the elites while the majority were suffering. You can say that we have increased the number of jobs, yes, but when the prices are so terrible that you are not able to afford even bread, but you are working, then it demonstrates that the system that is coming from the elites is not to save us as ordinary citizens, but few people.
As long as the corporations have a say, let's look at these people and follow the money. Let's look at these people and follow the money. Trevor Manuel ended up working for who? The Rothschilds. So, and this guy was married to who? Maria Ramos. Who's Maria Ramos? The same woman who admitted into colluding with rating agencies, external rating agencies, in collapsing what? The rand. Yeah. Meaning, she was once trusted in this country. If it was in China or Vietnam, she would have been sentenced to death. But she funded the CR17 campaign. She went back as an advisor, but she admitted into collapsing the rand. Now, ask yourself the link of these people.
Yes.
Do these people care? On the other hand, look at the companies that are linked into the same Thabo Mbeki you mentioned. Hence, I said, follow the money.
Yeah.
Follow the money. You'll know the truth. You'll start to understand that anything and everything that you say, that you see, that they say, don't believe it. Listen to what they say and keep it to yourself. But what is important, watch what they do. So, who was in control of them when they were in power? Who is this person? And ask yourself, why are all these guys were frequenting London?
Yeah.
What is it that when somebody comes to office, he goes to London? All these governments, 3 presidents have changed. Trevor Manuel remained the finance minister. And even when they were reshuffling, and immediately left government, he goes and works for the Rothschild. Didn't he work for the Rothschilds while he was still in the office? I'm just saying that. I don't have proof, but if you are smart enough to see and follow the money, you'll start to understand that what you say, what you think, what you assume, what you try to put together, it does not matter. What matters is they will always do what the master tells them. Sometimes you can look at the guy in front of you, but the person who has put the guy in front of you is behind that person. Do you see that person? No, you can't see. It's the actions of the individual that will tell you that whatever this guy is doing, it's someone else who's telling him what to do. So the deals that these guys enter into, where they get given, where they get handed rule books, this is how it's going to work. Everything that we have said when we were campaigning, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
If you have listened to Obama, what he said when he was campaigning, if I was in America, I would have voted for him. As soon as he walked into he opposed every single thing he said. He said, I'm going to get the soldiers out of Iraq. Some American soldiers are still in Iraq till today from 2001. So what they say, don't listen to what they say, watch what they do. Because what they do, you see who is telling them. Because sometimes they do things they don't believe in, but because they sold their souls to the corporation for shares, their kids go to overseas, study in France, everywhere. That's why they don't care. They don't even take their own family members to the public clinics in this country. Mugabe went and died there in Indonesia. What happened to the healthcare system in Zimbabwe? Why didn't he build and trust the healthcare system in his country so that he can go there himself? All the kids of all these people you're talking about are all overseas. If they're here, they have to go to some private schools. That whole entire 1976 generation are the very same people who are fighting AfriForum to want to force AfriForum to accept their children in their schools. Now you start to see what is it that actually happened. What the hell is happening with these people? We want to build systems that we can trust, but we don't trust ourselves enough to build our own systems. So this makes you question a lot of things that are happening here. And hence now the Pan-African movement is being weakened every day because there's a new political system that comes to play all the time. There must be something new so people can remain confused. Because we're not going to win the war. As long as the colonizer is still here, as long as Coca-Cola is still in your fridge, as long as KFC is still across the street from you, as long as you still have McDonald's, it means the big corporations are still here. We'll have to turn into consumers instead of being citizens, where we can stand up and say things that will make sense for the future of each of our countries. At the moment in Africa, there's only one country or few countries that we're looking up to. We're all looking at Burkina Faso. We're all now singing praises of Thomas Sankara, giving the inspiration to the same person who was born when Sankara died. You can wish for those things to happen in South Africa. It's not going to happen here because the colonizer never left. He's still here. You have a political party, DA, who write to a secretary of state in a different country and ask for a protection. These are the very same people that form part of GNU who believe in Americans, not even South Africans. To make even things worse, they're not even the majority, but they dictate. Because they look pay, and pay people control the business. So the same person, the same pale person who's from the business, he is the same person who's giving the so-called ruling party money, and still give the other pale people to dictate to the darker people that the pale people want you to do what the pale people want using the dark people. This is what has been happening in this country. And people are getting confused. Yet it's straightforward, is out in the open. Sometimes they will take the dark person, they brainwash him to serve the interest of the pale people, because the pale people are minority. They just need one dark person to convince the others and say, he thinks like us, let him come and eat with us on the table. We have a government that is run by house Negroes who have zero interest in the day-to-day runnings of the household. Businesses are collapsing, people are sick, the houses are collapsing. Children can't go to school. They get swept away by the rivers. We still have mud schools. The kids were sunken in toilets. These are all the things and the reality. But someone, they will stand and say, hey, we've done a lot of work. How come they can't do true reflections to say this and this and this were paid? And when do we get to do performance management of our ministers or our president? Doesn't happen, because the courts are controlled by the corporation. The government is controlled by the corporation. That's why you see some judgments. You look at 20-year-old case, the please call me case. The pale people are dictating that the darker person does not deserve to have this. White people have a tendency of saying, that's what is happening. That's why they can't give that guy money. So, because of, we moved into the same building where the oppressors were sitting. We still use the same boardrooms where the oppressors were sitting. We still use the same chairs. Where is the change? Where is the cleansing?
Yeah.
All we did was to bribe with the street names. You know, we changed street names. And some of those people that the street names are used, we don't even know who they were. You know, even their families are not even recognized. So why don't you change the country? You should have started by changing the country, put the actual, because South Africa, it's a geographical term. We are in the south of Africa. Then we make that a name. Why we were not brave enough? I mean, they took away your Dingan's Day. They say it's a reconciliation. Who's reconciling? Who has apologized for you to be able to reconcile? And 27th of April, they said it's a Freedom Day. Who is free? Which freedom are you talking about? We should speak on these things. We should come out to speak on these issues. We cannot be tiptoeing around these things and have fear. Things are not happening because the corporations are dictating terms and conditions for the politicians to write policies that are supposed to talk to us as Black people. And how do we measure how far are we from the time we started to where we are? Where are we going? Do we even understand where we stand?
Yeah.
Because now we're looking at South Africa turning against the original friends that South Africa had. And the leaders are not understanding that it's impacting on ordinary people. Whatever stupid decision they take because they're eating the money from the masters. The ordinary people get to suffer because of that. And they don't realize that. And when you try to speak, there's a popular thing within the ANC circles. You're out of order, comrade. When you speak against what they all agreed on, that is the problem.
Yeah. So Kokwane, there are areas that we still need to unpack so that we demonstrate or be able to identify exactly who controls the world. We need to look at the issue of trade by focusing on the trade war between China and the US. We also need to look at the current wars, one being Palestine and India, and also look at the re-escalation of the war between Palestine and Israel. While we're demonstrating that, we want to understand, you mentioned already, the reason behind America or Trump wanting to recognize Palestine as a state. So let's start from the context of trade war between China and the US. Who will suffer and who will suffer more between US and China? And then we also need to look in the context of the global South in general, the European countries, and then also us.
At this point in time, a direct answer is the Americans. The American population are hanged they will be dry very soon.
Yeah.
Because same thing we're explaining, when stupid politicians make stupid decisions because they are influenced by stupid bosses that they have to implement stupid policies that they don't seem to understand what will do to ordinary people, but their agenda. Because the agenda is about control. The Chinese people are very clear of what they want. They know what they want. They are firm on what they want. They will give you something, but they'll give you 10 rands and get 100 rands out of it. They will ensure that they will be very patient, but they will make sure you eat as long as you want from them and you work for them. That's their system. Whereas the other block A, zone A, will use military muscles. They will use tactics. They will use very dirty tactics. They will put a lot of operation into play because they control central banking systems. They will just print money and play around with the money and make your country and your life live in hell. We have seen it in this country where some leaders are meant to feel they will be bashed by media, they're meant to feel like they're useless, and the whole public must perceive you as a person that we have faith. Whereas the Chinese will nurse you to your grave, where you'll die quietly, but they would have discovered what you had for them. They would have won the war by acquiring what they wanted from you. Both these countries are not 150% good for Africans, because Africans are supposed to build their own economics and remain independent and treat those Western powers or Eastern countries or Asia as trading partners, whereby I give you a service, you pay. I give you products, you pay. Pay the money that is due to me. I give you what you want. That's how it should happen. That's what we call it, trade. But the trade that bring all your things, I refine and sell it back to you. That's a problem. So Americans are going to suffer. They put 35% tariffs, and then China put 125% tariffs. So you can see that one party within these guys is to say, I don't care, do what you want. I'm big enough. I'm here in my house. If you want to come and dictate to me what should happen, it's not going to happen. So if you don't buy our goods, we have enough population to consume our own goods. Hence, our policy was mass production for our economy. We will put more money into making millionaires within our country so that we can consume our own products, because we go for mass production. Failing that, let's identify countries that either are weak or that think like us, that we could dump these things and then they give us money and we get control. Then we can see how we can work together with them.
Yeah.
What is it that we can offer to them? So that is what is happening at the moment. But majority of the countries are now keeping the cards close to their chest, watching exactly what's happening. They go to the directions where either their corrupt leaders will go, or where they genuinely see the best interest of their country at heart, with China or within America. I don't have anything good that I can say about Americans bringing things to us, except bringing Chuck Norris and Rambo in movies. Even the Chinese also bring your Jackie Chan that we watch. But now we are done with that. We want to see economy. We want to see our children benefiting from how to make cell phones, how to, all these experimental, and stop using the warehouses that we have around the churches. We now need to talk economics, you know. So what is happening now, if you have built a stronger economy, when these tariffs are going up, you'll go where you can have a better deal that will not sink your country, and you won't be shaken. And if you're going to be shaken, now there's an option. If Africans are squeezed, they go to Chinese and Russia or Iran. That's when they get deals and they get treated better. Whereas If they get squeezed in the US, they have no option. And if they have a leader who's resisting, either that leader will be killed, or either that leader will be overthrown, or either that leader will be bashed by their media and even the local media. Just to have a public perception that will say that leader is not good for you. Meanwhile, they want to trade. I remember Zuma once resisted Obama when he wanted to bring the chicken. And Zuma said, we have our own chicken. Obama said, no, I'll dump that chicken there. You will buy the chicken or else. I don't know how that story ended, but it was a story that was in the public domain that Obama once threatened Zuma to dump the chicken here. You know, so this is a problem that even before, when we were saying that there's still a void from white people in South Africa. When we said this to say white people in South Africa believe so much in the Americans, they said no, it's conspiracy theories. 8,000 apply for asylum in America, and they booked them a flight to go and live in America. Let's see how long that will take, because there's no Yomur. You do your mur there, you go to jail. You understand? So it all comes from that they think going there, they will be able to get opportunity to trade with other friendly countries so that they can make ends meet. It will be much better than what they were getting here. So there will be casualties in these tariff wars. You will see that China, it's now testing their technology, giving the Pakistan things to see. Remember, China and India, they are divided by a border. There's always conflict. Now it makes sense for you to understand that the Chinese, if they can't confront India directly, because they all belong to one BRICS bloc, Chinese will always respect that. But they will find somebody to say, use this, let's see how far this will go. Because whenever there's a conflict, smart countries will find an opportunity to find one faction so that they can see the weapons that they've been developing are working. We have seen a lot of equipment, the German Leopards that were sent to Ukraine, the military hardware that was sent from Pentagon to Ukraine, they don't work. And some of the weapons that work, the generals in the Ukrainian army are selling this weapon to Russian generals. And why they're doing that, the Russians are stripping this technology and study where Americans are at here, so that they start to understand it still forms part of the trading war. When you shoot down drones, they rush. That's why when they shoot down a drone, they rush to want to take it so that they can study the technology and interpret and decode all those things so that they can understand which country did they get the chip from. If we get this chip, if you sell this chip to that guy, make it 200% markup so he can't buy from you, we will slowly have the right to own this chip. Why is America defending Taiwan against China? Because they want to get the chips easy. And the chip that they get from Taiwan is the chip that is similar to what the Chinese will build, because these are the same people. Then they will buy it. German will buy it because German will make the chip and supply to Americans. Then they want to compare and study who is superior in the technological world in the warfare, so that the military industrial complex, part of the corporations, will benefit from that trade. So this is what has been happening. But now you will talk this big technology in that big stage. Where is South Africa? Where is Zimbabwe? Where is African countries? So this is where they said there was a black person, an African person, and a Chinese person, and the Indians and whites. They went to visit God. When they arrived, they asked the Chinese, "Why are you here?" The Chinese said, "I just want to be smarter than all of them, and I want to know how to copy from everyone and sell it back to them." They said, "Right, sit down." Indians said, "No, I want to make peace with everyone so I can benefit from all parties." I said, "Okay, right. White said, no, I want them to look at me as their God, as their master. When I speak, they must listen. They said, Africans said, no, I was just accompanying them. Mina bengihambelana nabo nje. Anobayeleketa, angahlalisona mina. Ndiyofikela nje nama so ndodwa abakubatale sendukunameta famba nabo. Angokho manchumu mara nje. Lifaka so. That's what happens because we don't have an agenda. It's Captain Ibrahim Traore who's showing us the agenda of what we should be doing. So the trade will be easier if we have an agenda that is clear. We can't say, oh, no, I'm shocked to hear this. Oh, I'm shocked to hear that. Oh, no, I should have, oh, I'm shocked. That's the problem. We don't have an agenda. All these other people have their agenda. You go to Russia, they tell you their agenda. You go to Italy, they tell you their agenda. Americans, you see their agenda. Chinese, you see their influence. Their agenda is clear. They were able to infiltrate South Africa straight to the parliament. Chinese people, because they know their agenda. Can a black person from South Africa who happens to be an ANC member go and infiltrate Chinese Communist Party to a point where even as a seat in parliament? Will that happen? Trust you me, even to sweep the streets, you can't. You can't even have a broom and be an EPWP in China. It can't happen because we don't have an agenda. We don't have a national agenda to say, this is what we want to do for us by us. It can't happen. Everyone will be trading. All we wait is to do. That's why we have leaders who will go to Rome and stand like this and nobody recognizes them because these are professional beggars.
Yeah. So, Kopani, can I ask in here, if you were from Israel government and you witness US having start relationship with Iran and also recognize Palestine, in just few phrases, what will you say?
Pick up and leave. The game is over. Pick up and go. It's over. Because the big brother that has been making you to be so pompous for the longest time, all of a sudden, and the Americans were smart enough to give these guys weapons. To give these guys weapons. I remember my professor said, at some point, they will be dropped and they will never believe it. He told me this around 2014. I'm like, it's impossible. There was no way. He said, no, watch. Yes, Trump saying is recognizing Palestine. He's forcing that the aid needs to go there urgently, as in yesterday. As we speak right now in Oman, there's a meeting happening between US and Iran. So your question is spot on. It's happening in real time right now. But let me say this. Israel is so thick. They are currently engaged. Direct wars, 7 of them in one go. But where did they get the balls of steel? From the person who now wants to recognize this other faction. So this tells you that they are not going to break down easily because they know that their bosses will still have the European Union that will be dictated to support them. The talks are already in session. Because they were in Ukraine, the next stop is to speak to Netanyahu. But now some of the EU countries are saying, whatever you do or say, we don't want anything to do with this guy. But there will be those who will support on the basis of the instruction that will come from the master to say, support this guy, like it or not. So straight question would be, America needs to, Israel needs to rethink the strategy because this will mean they will now be surrounded by problems. Even though most of these Arab countries, they're money-loving countries who don't care about Palestinians, they care about their money, their God is money, that's what they do. And to also add that, when the whole world was programmed to think that the Shia groups are the evil of Muslims. Even the cycles that or people I hang with, they will say to me, no, Shias are bad. But guess what? The only group that is full on fighting, confronting Israel every day is the Shias, your Hezbollah, the Houthis.
Yeah.
These are the people that were able, the Iran. These are the people that were able to confront Israel. All the Sunni Arab states are cordial with Israel. They're normalizing things with Israel because what? The money that they make in their countries is banked, it's invested in London, everywhere. Whose banks are this? The same person that is slaughtering their brothers across the road from them. Because they know the money will be frozen. Now they must worship to say, no, we understand. That's what happened. That's why you see even South African Muslims, they said they would boycott Coca-Cola, go to their fridge, it's there. Starbucks, it's there. All these other countries, all these other products, they consume because they are not loyal to anyone. They will pray 100 times a day. It means nothing if they're not truthful to themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want us to talk about financial surveillance so that we explore more and be able to pinpoint issues so that we be able to see exactly who controls the world. But before that, there are hearsays that China is funding Pakistan to fight India. Do you believe that is true or not?
Look, I wouldn't say funding, I would say support. Because like I said, all the big countries, whenever there's a conflict, and the conflict of Pakistan, India, and China, remember, India and China, they are, even sometimes they're fist fights of their soldiers in the border. 20 soldiers were engaged in a fist fight where they agreed to put weapons down and fight.
Yeah.
30 minutes later, they all agreed that, okay, it's not worth it, let's stop fighting. No one was shot because of this border dispute.
Yeah.
Now, your enemy's enemies, my friend, policies applying there. So Pakistan, it's good friends with Iran. Iran is a younger brother of Russia. Russia is a big buddy of China. And India is supplying weapons to Israel and Ukraine. Now you start to understand and see the split. Remember, China is with Russia. Iran is with Russia. If Iran is with Russia, Pakistan will be with Iran.
Yeah.
Because these are Muslim brothers. Whereas India is persecuting a lot of Muslims in India. And they sympathize with Ukraine and they support Israel. Modi and Netanyahu are friends. So that is a given that China will use that opportunity to test few weapons that they might want to use when they fight their arch rival, the US. So that theory, based on the zigzag and the movement of the relationships amongst the brothers within the thick of things, it is possible. It is possible.
So, Kokwane, the statement was linked to the issue of trade war. Whoever said that China is funding Pakistan said that China is frustrated. That is the reason it's funding Pakistan to fight India. At the same time, there are lots of people from India who are migrating to the United States, seeking jobs, and they are being welcomed. So, and I ask myself a question, is it not this propaganda? Because the first statement, the person said, was to say that we are witnessing the end of BRICS.
Well, the end of BRICS, according to the individual, it's, remember, there's a project called Project Swing State. This project targeted 3 countries. And if you were to follow the money in these 3 countries within BRICS, and the behavior of the head of states within BRICS of these countries, except for one country where the behavior of the head of state is that his surrounding and geographically is not far from US. So the operations that the CIA could conduct there are much easier. And we saw some of the protests that were happening in Brazil were part of that. So when you look at India, it's with BRICS. One day we will use BRICS currency. The next day we are not ready to use the BRICS currency. And another famous country, deputy president said, "Oh, our country is not ready to go for BRICS currency." So now these 3 countries are suspects. And why is this man saying BRICS is dead? He's saying, and it's from the West. Now,
Yes.
I wonder, he's thinking, China can be frustrated by what? You can't tell me that Russia and China, now Iran, and the other new countries that joined are frustrated. These countries that the project was focusing on, the Project Swing State, are the founding members. So if he's saying BRICS is dead, he is talking about the BRICS bloc, the foundation of the Brazil, Russia, India, and South Africa. That's the actual, and China. That's the origin. So within that, China is still standing, Russia is still standing. Now we have Iran that is still standing. Now it takes me exactly to the point of where the suspects are. Looking at the behavior of these countries and looking and follow the money and follow the behavior and follow the stance that they take in other issues, it makes you think that the actual BRICS could be there, but they could change the name of BRICS and put other players that will show a significant role, that will play a role that these other 3 suspects are doing. They can be replaced because the GNU, part of the things in the GNU in the negotiations was to oversee and also agree on the foreign policy. And the foreign policy, the DA being the same party that will rely on the US. The US said part of the conditions, if you go there, try and take the foreign ministry. And the ANC was smart enough not to give away there, because the very first thing that would have been done was to do away with BRICS. They would have frustrated the movement by that behavior. But still, there's a science, there's little dots that you see in the GNU administration all around that are very suspicious. Their behavior. Hence, you saw some of the cabinet ministers went to Israel and come back and say there's nothing happening in Palestine. There's no genocide happening. So what does that tell you? Whereas the administration of Cyril took Israel to court, unless if that was a smokescreen. So it leaves you with a lot of questions. So within BRICS, yes, the BRICS can die as the way, because there are suspects within the bloc. But there are other players who are waiting. We saw them. We saw your Vietnam, we saw your Burkina Faso, we saw all these other countries that were there. Those are the countries. That's why Dilema Rousseff was there. You know, She was persecuted there in Brazil. Some of those guys, Maduro was there. There were a couple of assassinations for Maduro in Venezuela. There was an American Navy that was hovering around Venezuela, wanting to take down the government of Maduro. So, yes, there are suspects in this government.
One more area to explore, Kokwan.
Yes.
South Africa. I'm not going to talk about South Africa alone, but to make a reference of what's happening globally. We have financial surveillance for individual people like myself who is not even earning above poverty line.
Yes.
And we know that SARS has introduced a law to say that there will be certain amount of money that one needs to withdraw so that we don't run away, or companies don't run away from a tax, because they believe that when people withdraw a big chunk of money, they don't want to pay tax. So is this the problem has to do with the pressure coming from outside? For example, when we're talking about the BRICS currency, we also need to look at the area where South Africa was attempting to nationalize the Reserve Bank. So while we are talking about that, yes, it's beautiful to monitor the financials because we don't want to experience money laundering all the time. However, is it not this problem going against the democratic principles where I'm being surveilled like I'm a thief? You categorize each and every person who withdraw a bigger chunk of money as a criminal. Is that really fair? Or what is behind this?
But remember, the financial surveillance has been here. It's just that it was not out in the open. When they were targeting black businesses, there was a law that says you can't withdraw over 25,000, or when you deposit over 25,000, you need to tell them where you get the money, what you were doing with that money. That was also trying to capture the taxi business, the informal businesses in the street because remember, the moment they get the access to the money, they start to study individuals. What do you do with the money? Where are you making the money? Then they start coming up. Taxes used to be cheap. But once they started to understand that the black businesses were banking a lot of money, now we buy a quantum for 800,000-900,000 with less seats. It's expensive and it's bigger. So it's just bigger outside, but the seats are less. And they enforce the laws to say you must have this kind of people. So these are some of the systems that they've created to make sure that they monitor us financially. They dictate terms and conditions on how we should spend our money. It goes back again. It's the corporation that decides and dictates through the banking. So they dictate to the government what government should be doing. There's no such thing in democracy in the financial world. Never. It cannot happen. It's there, it's happening. The government was aware, and it is aware because they can't speak when they eat. They will only action what the master wants them to do. So the financial surveillance has always been there. And we've seen a lot of things. You don't see eye to eye with this guy. All of a sudden, SARS is after that individual. This guy made a statement that, oh no, all of a sudden, SARS. The system has been there. They've been using this state organs to push their own personal agendas. Such and such was seen talking to that guy's wife. He's suspecting that he's after my wife. Then SARS is dead. So this thing has been used loosely, and the system has been there. It's just that now they want to make you aware. They want to tell you what they're about to do. So you somehow, they manufacture your consent, so to say. It has been there.
There, who owns the bank? Is this the state or individuals?
No,
wait, hang on.
Hence, we always say, follow the money. The person that owns the banks, we don't see their face. We only know that it's the bank. Is there people who dictate what the government should do? 2017, somebody rocked up in Soweto with 3 CEOs of a bank. What does that tell you? Years later, 2025, the banks are telling you this. He rocked up in Soweto with 3 banking CEOs. And then now fold your arms and ask all these questions. Who runs the government? Follow the money. You will know that the person who doesn't even sit in this country, we've never seen their face, they dictate by corporations. There's donation, there's $950 million being given to this and that. All these LV bags that are handed over in all these conferences, the owners are the ones that are ensuring that monies are handed over to continue to champion policies that the politicians themselves don't even know what they're doing with that money. They're selling the countries with the money that they collect in those Louis Vuitton bags.
Yeah, Kopani, you said that they are given policies that they don't even know. But
yes,
we are in a democratic country.
It doesn't work. There's no such thing. Let's not use the word.
Let me finish, Kopani, so that you get my context. We are in a democratic country. Yes, it's not there. And the banks are owned by private people. And then you are taking the process that is supposed to be implemented by government and give it to private individuals to run the show. So meaning that you are subjecting the citizens to the work of the private people. So where is democracy in there? So I'm trying to demonstrate the cycle that we are captured actually, because you cannot take the government process and give it to private companies and say that run the show, because now the banks will be monitoring people like nobody's business, and that is not legal. What is that the Constitution is saying about respecting my privacy? And now you give authority to the bank that it's privately owned to monitor my financials. So that's what I'm trying to explain.
But it's always been happening. They've always monitor you. You were sold. Your information is given to private companies. Remember, the only problem here is that these private companies are the ones that are funding this Congress, are the ones that are funding the political parties, are the ones that, so when they fund you in exchange of something, so whatever something that they're exchanging with, sometimes politicians are not told what they want at the end. They say, here's the money, good luck. When you come into the office, come and see us. You go back, they tell you what they want exactly, or else we'll expose you. So you go with your tail in between your legs. You can't say anything because you took the money. The cameras, they set you up nicely. They will tell the public that you took money to get there. Sometimes they will leak it in their media houses. So the story goes off and they phone you, they say, do you want us to put the whole thing? You're like, no. And then you do what they want. So as far as democracy is concerned, it's non-existent. It's democracy, it's colonialism, it's capitalism, it's racism, equals to poverty for Black people. That's it.
Kokwani, we have about 750 billion in black markets that are not operating within the context of the normal system that is dictated, government can dictate. So,
start with that one that was found in the couch. Start with that one that was found in the couch, in the mattress. It's part of that figure you mentioned.
I'm talking about that type of money, the one that was under the couch. So when we have the black market and you find that it is freely operating, there are no taxes that are not being charged or being paid. What does it say to us if we want to put ourselves ready for the BRICS currency? Because even the investment coming from outside, not from the West, but also from our friends, do you think they come and invest in a country where the system is like the way it is. But I'm not supporting that they need to use banks to surveil us. I'm trying to see if we can come up with a better way to surveil the financials without violating the democratic principles.
The system is created to be like this. The only people who will break the system are the same people who created it, because they were able to break it when they came back to say the president of South Africa did not violate anything with the amount of money that was found with him. There's nothing wrong with that. You have foreign currency, even if it's little money, you'll go to jail. So that tells you exactly that as long as you're not part of the club, the democracy works for the people who created it, who believe in it. It only works for the few. It's not for everyone. Other people, there's a child that accidentally received money and she used some of it, sentenced to, and there's a guy who worked for some rugby union who accidentally put few millions in his account. It was a mistake. He's scot-free.
Yeah.
So what does this tells you? The people who are in charge of the system, they dictate what they want to do. Whether you want a surveillance, whether you don't want a surveillance, as long as the colonizer never left, he's still here with you. He's here to make the impact felt by you, to say, we will dictate and do what you want. For example, there were other political parties who were majority, but the GNU was the DA with less numbers. So that tells you whether you vote or you don't vote, whether democracy, no democracy, start from there. Look at the GNU, you'll start to understand that there's no such thing as voting and democracy, because it doesn't work. The master will dictate what they want to do. So the financial situation we're faced with now, it will only be them that will dictate. Until such time, the Zone B bloc who want to invest here, they won't be able to do so, unless if they're going to go via and do the same thing.
So I was attempted to ask a question. We go back to our subject, who controls the world? And you said follow the money. And that is the only answer. So to somebody who don't exactly get what does follow the money means, can you just give few phrases to elaborate that?
VM Network, it's your time to tune in. Stories that connect where we all begin. Laughter, lessons, journeys unfold. VM Network, let the stories be told. VM Network, it's your time to tune in. Stories that connect where we all begin. Laughter, lessons, journeys unfold. VM Network, let the stories be told. VM Network, it's your time to tune in. Stories that connect where we all begin. Laughter, lessons, journeys unfold. VM Network, let the stories be told. VM Network, it's your time to tune in. Stories that connect where we all begin. Laughter, lessons, journeys unfold. VM Network,